Since the end of the pandemic, we have been experiencing a massive wave of price increases that have affected seemingly every commodity on the market. With all the money printing and spending that has occurred during the pandemic, inflation has rendered our money seemingly worthless. While some scramble for a pay raise, others scramble to invest in stocks, crypto, real estate, and other assets. Although inflation is usually a right wing talking point, even people on the left are complaining about it as well. Everywhere there seems to be a feeling of pessimism about the economy, and everyone is feeling the crunch one way or another. The following is a discussion about our experiences with the current economic conditions and where we think things are headed.
I think I want to talk about, I guess we all talk about the economy a lot, but it's more prevalent than ever to, you know, address it. Like, how's groceries over there? Is it as bad as they say? Bad here, but not too bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's like
Is it
double the price.
really? So,
Yeah.
what's a pound of steak or chicken? Like $15?
I haven't checked in a while because I haven't bothered to
Oh God,
get
yeah.
steaks. It's just chicken.
Yeah, I think the last time I was there and I bought food or groceries, it was like $15 for a pound of whatever meat you prefer. Just kind of crazy. It's still cheap over here, so I don't know. I think people here kind of complain a lot. Like, yes, everything's gone up in value, but groceries as a gym rat probably doesn't cost me more than 150 a week, and that's like a pound of meat and then veggies and bread and what else. It's probably like $5 or $6 for a pound of chicken.
Yeah, even like the price of like snacks. For example, like there's this tamarind candy, Mexican candy that I often get. I
Yeah.
remember it's like a few months ago it was $2, and then within like a month or two it was $3, and now it's approaching four.
Yeah, I think I bought like a 6 pack of Oreo from the gas station. I think it's like 350. I'm just like, what the like I might as well just buy more meat or something. So it's to the point where I can't even have a snack, but maybe
Yeah,
that's a
that
good thing. I don't know.
yeah, that's the thing though. People used to say that you should save money by not eating out and then just buying groceries and cooking food yourself. But
Hmm.
now the cost of ingredients is so expensive that you might as well just eat out because then like the restaurant will eat the cost.
Yeah. It depends where you live too. I think this chick I'm talking to, her God, it's crazy. Like what would typically be a $10 meal for like, I don't know, a quarter pound steak and a side would be like $10 or so. It's like almost 20 something dollars, which is crazy. But it's just that one restaurant that's trying to stay afloat, which I get. But at least over here, cooking at home is still way cheaper than eating out. And I don't know. I'll just talk about fast food prices going up. I think it's been going up for like years because at my last job, I was making really good money and I'd eat out all the time. I realized I'm paying almost $20 for some fast food meal. And at the time, I was on the clock. So my old job would have me not clock out for lunch. So I just, take my lunch and that would balance out the cost of lunch. But now that I don't work there anymore, I definitely don't eat out. It's fucking ridiculous. But I don't know, like then there's the rise of Ozempic, and that plays a huge part in it too. And I don't feel bad for fast food companies because they profited so much for so long. And then now, if you want to lose weight, even if you're lazy, you can just take Ozempic, right? Like the meme is like Ozempic and Diet Coke or whatever.
Yeah.
So that I rather eat that or consume that than eat overpriced fast food when you can go to an actual sit down restaurant and probably get it for cheaper at some mom and pop, right? So I don't know. I think it's good that these fast food companies are hurting. I hope like because we're incentive based creatures, aren't we? Like if we charge $50 for a Big Mac, like how many people would be eating that, you know? And it's not, it's like hyperbole, but I believe in that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Because then, like, one of the things you hear people complain about the most is the cost of fast food. Because traditionally it was supposed to be fast and quick and cheap,
Yeah,
but now increasingly it's costing just as much as any other sit-down restaurant. So it's like, why pay the same amount for fast food when you could just eat out at a proper restaurant, you know?
yeah,
And so it's
right.
forcing a lot of fast food places to actually take their stuff seriously. They actually
Yeah,
have to provide value for the dollar rather than just default on the standard boomer model of fast food where it's just the same old all the time.
yeah. Even in the '90s and early 2000s, I remember like my dad would like, just have his lunch if he didn't feel like eating at home, or whatever. And like, dude, I remember under $5, you get like a supersized whatever the fuck and like a double quarter pounder. And yes, it's not real food, it's not good for you, but yeah, like you said, it was fast and super cheap. And if you're working class, it's worth it, dollar. Um, you factor in the dollar cost, then it's definitely worth it. But now it doesn't make sense to because you're paying so much money. You're paying three times the amount of groceries that you can cook, and you're getting fat, and you're dying sooner. So there's literally no incentive now to even eat there. I will say it's addicting and it tastes good, and I love fast food, but that's it. I can't think of anything else.
Do you know how much they pay employees to work at like a burger restaurant in Phoenix?
Phoenix, I mean, I can look it up.
Because like
I
around
think
here
that
it's like approaching 20.
20, it has to be close here because minimum wage. Uh,
Because then there's inflation which is causing everything to go up. And then now on top of that, they're adding in huge increases in minimum pay as well.
yeah, so I mean, this
Yeah,
is a,
like I keep hearing about like fast food managers making like insane amounts of money.
maybe in the coastal areas, I could probably believe that, but I think it's still like 12. There's the delivery. What? Burger King has delivery? I don't know if I could show you this.
Because I know places like In and Out have long been known to pay their workers a lot of money relative to all the other brands.
Yeah, I'd say roughly around 12 to $15. Well, no, apparently it's a 19.79 per hour for a crew member. There's a delivery person, but I didn't know they deliver. Yeah, I'm just gonna assume $20, which is kind of crazy.
It's like either $20 or approaching $20 sometime soon.
Yeah, which is I don't know. And it kind of stings because it's like, what if you work like a regular job making close to that? And it's kind of like a slap in the face. Like I get
It
it. I'm
is,
not.
it is. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of like lab technician jobs where they expect you to have a bachelor's degree and
yeah,
years of actual clinical lab experience, and they pay the same amount of money.
yeah. That's I don't know. I saw an article, or yeah, I saw an article, and then I saw a Tim Pool video on like UPS drivers, I think. And I think the conversation around it was like, I think most people like we grow up working whatever job in hopes like it's just a pipe dream to be overpaid. So me personally, I'm happy for anyone who gets overpaid for what they do because most people get underpaid because your employer dictates what you get paid, and most of the market rates, I think it's not sufficient, Like
Yeah.
UPS truck drivers, they make like 170 a year, but those guys work their asses off. They earn every dollar, which I'm happy for, but they should get paid that much. And all the engineering people complaining, it's like, no, like that's what happens when you don't have a union. Like you guys should be getting paid like 300 or more or whatever. But these companies don't want to pay that because there's so much demand in STEM that they can get away with like underpaying. Like I know people who make like 50K starting out or 75K for an engineer, which if you've never worked like a job, it's like, oh, that's great, but no, it's in today's time, it's barely livable, especially for all the time and effort and
That's entry
study.
level job these days.
Yeah, for the amount of work you put into school, like that's not worth it. So,
Yeah.
and there's money out there. Like I listened to a Martin Shkreli like motivational video or whatever for the gym yesterday. He's talking about how there's $400 trillion out there. Money's always moving, and I don't know. In an ideal world, people get paid enough to live off their trade, and you wouldn't need to work like fucking 50 side hustles. Because historically, people just worked one trade or job, and like that was it, and they live pretty normal lives. It's only in recent times where we've become workaholics. It's like modern slavery, but I don't know. We kind of just ran with the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm
Like
worried about is like, is the extra cost of paying those workers going to be footed by the customers?
for
Because
fast
that's what,
food.
for fast food, definitely, because then like we're paying more for it now.
Oh yeah, and like it's just gonna keep. Well, now they can't because most people are leaving, and they found their pain point of like, okay, this is a certain threshold where people won't come back. And then now it's the one time I actually advocate for pharmaceuticals because so far people on Ozempic, I'm sure there's like fucking side effects to anything you take, but it's one of those things where a drug is actually good for society. And it's so funny seeing these huge fast food corporations like squirming to maintain their historic revenue, you know? Because if people would just stop eating, having the urge to eat, and eating like, I don't know, a third of what they usually do, and obesity just plummets. Like most of the health industries, all the fast food joints, all the, I don't know, fucking weight loss clinics, a lot of industries will be pretty much like out of business, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm interested. And then like we extrapolate it to like if everybody goes broke and cost of living is just unsustainable and we actually do like start starving, whatever, like I don't know. I joked about it during COVID, like, yeah, there's a supply chain on like food. So for like for maybe 6 months, Americans will like not have enough to eat, and then you know they'll be at a healthy body weight because we're so overweight that honestly, I don't think there's any way we're gonna starve. Not in the near future, at least. We got plenty of body fat to sustain us. So I don't know.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of when COVID hit and then people started working from home remote.
Yeah,
And a lot of those jobs stayed remote because people often complain about how like how they had to go back to the office and they didn't want to go back to the office. But like a lot of the jobs stayed remote.
yeah,
So like it actually the disaster forced actual change. Because some
hmm,
jobs could be done remote.
yeah,
And that actually allowed companies to actually stop renting out office spaces. That's
yeah,
why like so many of these super expensive office spaces in like cities like San Francisco or New York, super expensive, tens of like in just insane amounts of rent that they have to pay just to
yeah,
rent the office. Those
yeah,
places are like the are now plummeting because then not enough people are using those buildings because everyone's working from home.
yeah. And even if they do have any office spaces, the industry as a whole, or the commercial side at least, it's never going to go back because, again, there will be the overwhelming majority of people who, because at the end of the day, any business comes down to profit and loss. You like, why would you ever run a not profitable business unless you're trying to you're trying to swallow up the market, kind of like another Amazon or whatever. Like the amount of money you can save on rent. Same thing with like cost of living. The biggest fucking cost in life is transportation and where you live. If you have a mortgage or you have rent, but if you can eliminate that, you'd have an excess amount of money. So yeah, like my last accounting job, I could have done it remote, but my CFO was like a super boomer. So he wanted everyone in the office. Maybe it would have been nice trying a remote job and just living wherever you want. But yeah, I don't know. It's getting kind of weird. I follow some real estate circles, and a lot of people say that with the influx of people immigrating in, I don't think the housing market will ever crash. Because I don't know if you still follow Tim Pool. I maybe listened to a couple clips I skimmed through because with a lot of influencers, it's not that so much that I believe they're grifting. It's just they just got to sell a certain narrative and just pump out content all the time, even if it's things they talked about already. Like how BlackRock, like only owns like maybe I don't know. Private equity probably owns like 10%, not even, of single family homes. Like, yeah, they're renting it, they're parking money there, and it's a really good investment, you know, like there's depreciation, there's so many things that real estate can do for you for wealth that they have a good portion in it. But overwhelmingly, I think it's like almost 70% of single family homes are owned by actual families. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, we're still in a housing shortage actually. And it's just because I don't know. It's hard for me to uh I'm sure you could pull it up, but I know it has something to do with not having enough permits allowed for builders to build. So there's this artificial limited
Yeah.
amount of housing, and that drives up demand. I mean, as a homeowner, like that's like a win, obviously, because like you keep everything keeps appreciating, but it sucks for someone just starting out unless they have like a fat down payment and they probably have help from their parents or whatever. But yeah, like back to the Tim Pool thing, he talks about how like theoretically, like, if home prices keep going up and the boomers pass on their wealth and millennials and Gen Z are looking to enter the market to buy, no one's gonna buy because no one can afford it. I mean, in that scenario, that there might be a way where everything just comes crashing down in terms of housing prices. If no one can buy and your house just sits for months and months, and no matter how low you lower the price, no one can afford it, then maybe that'll work. But then again, there's always people willing to buy. I feel like humans are cockroaches in the sense that we'll adapt to any scenario. Like you need to buy a home for your family, like you'll find a way to do it. Like however long that takes or however much money you need to put down to qualify. So in that sense, I feel like the ball will keep rolling to a point where I don't know, our homes get really, really expensive. We could start living in their cars or something. But I think because housing is so attached to the economy in the sense that it's a hedge for inflation, I don't think it's going to go down. I don't know.
Yeah.
People wait for this crash, but if it does crash like 50%, I feel like we'll have bigger problems. Like, so we'll probably turn into Mad Max or something. You know what I mean? Like if the stock market like totally plummets, like there will be blood in the streets or something. And I don't think people factor that in because the fact that a lot of young men are aimless and nihilistic, and especially men in inner cities or come from lower income backgrounds, they're resorting to degeneracy or even crime. Yeah, I can't. If it's bad now, I don't know how bad it'd be when everything actually does go to shit per se. Like we might not have anything else to preserve if there's just anarchy. What do you think?
Yeah, the whole BlackRock thing, it's very much exaggerated because like people are just frustrated with it, and so like they're looking for like an easy target, and so BlackRock is just used as a generic term for like all these finance companies, all these hedge fund managers, etc. It's kind of like how Kleenex is just the brand of like a tissue box, but we
Yeah,
call all
well,
tissue boxes Kleenex.
yeah, or like if you need a tissue, people will be like, "Oh, do you like grab a Kleenex?" Because it's so ingrained. That term is so ingrained in our culture that it literally is associated with the actual term, like the brand name is. And I get it. Private equity is. Uh, yeah, I sent you another video on these two British guys talking about private equity. And most of the inequality or like I guess economic oppression we see, it's not some crazy cabal that's just sitting around like coming up with ways to like oppress like the working class guy. They're just looking for returns no matter where they can find it, you know. So they swallow up industries and just do the typical gut the sector or like the business, cut out what you can cut out, overwork the workers, lay people off, and then raise profits and then sell it after a while and then move on to the next thing. Like they're looking for annual returns like year over year. So like 5%, let's say, just to give their investors a good return. And if they can't do that, then they'll force it through those means and then move on to something else.
Yeah,
And then
that's
they
the
get their
thing.
huge cut. So that's what they do, really.
Yeah, that's the thing is like these hedge fund managers and these private equity companies, like they're run by boomers. They don't really invent things anymore. It's like the era when they invented things, that was like in the 80s and 90s. Nowadays, they don't
Yeah.
really create anything. They just simply imitate. They'll just have like a bunch of like analysts beneath them, run like a bunch of tests to see as like, let's see like what trends are occurring, and then they'll just chase after the trend.
Yeah.
They'll notice that small investors are like investing a lot into real estate, and so they'll do the same, except they'll maximize it by flushing tons of money into it.
Yeah.
And so they're
And
able to do it on a larger scale, but it's just a continuation of what small investors do.
yeah, because I followed like ideally, I'm just trying to carve a little. Like I'm doing what every investor is doing on like a really really small scale because you really don't need much to live off of. Just do a little bit of investing, but yeah, like you said, the big guys in real estate investing, like they go for apartment complexes because that's like
Yeah,
top notch like quality. Because you think about how you have like a say you have like 300 homes to manage, like you'll make your money, but the thing is you'll be replacing 300 toilets, 300 roofs, and they're all scattered throughout wherever, whether it's just in your
yeah,
home state or you have like out of state property, which a lot of people do. Versus if you have a 300 unit apartment, you can hire two full-time maintenance guys, you know, have everything in house, you know, property managers, everything. And then everything is localized right there. And the crazy thing about apartments is I think after 4 units at a certain location, I think it's considered commercial or at least multifamily. I know for multifamily properties, I read up where their value is directly um, linked to net operating income or NOI. So if you raise your rents and you cut back costs, and that ends up giving you like a higher monthly rent or profit after expenses, the value of that property goes up like dramatically. So if you just charge like, I don't know, $25 more for rent for 300 units, that's I don't know what the math is, but that's like at least a couple grand. And that's absolutely massive.
yeah. It scales
So
up.
it scales out like really quick and you're hardly doing anything. Actually, you're not doing anything. It's just numbers on a screen at that point. But yeah, like hedge funds will go for those units or they'll build out like whole ass neighborhoods now that are just for rent, which I get. Like I guess yeah, like I don't know. I can't tell if I'm getting outbidded. Like I didn't know who I was bidding against when I bought my house, but maybe there was a hedge fund. I don't know, but like I just don't think it's economically smart to just dump a couple million just to buy a few homes versus like
Yeah,
because these hedge funds are spending money that investors have, so they theoretically have like unlimited money. Why would you risk getting a couple properties and not having vacancies versus buying like whole ass neighborhoods or develop whole new living areas and charging top dollar for it? You know, it's the small time investors that are trying to like fix and flip or add units in the backyard, which is like a huge thing where Arizona now we call it casitas, but I know on the west side they call it ADUs. where you can build like, I don't know, like a mother-in-law suite, or if you have room and like your permits are good with the city, you can build additional units in the back. And that's how investors are making money, because long gone are the days where you're finding like a duplex and you're living in it and then you're renting out the other one and then just traditionally buying units that way. I mean, you can still do it, put in huge enough down payment down, but now you got to really be creative and I don't know, just really be aggressive with your spending and or saving and investing. But yeah, people don't talk about that too. Like there's plenty of investors just trying to um, go into the market too. I feel like a lot of people are just waiting on the sidelines for like with cash, and those are the really wealthy people that'll really benefit during like let's say a supposed crash. Because when the economy crashes, most likely everyone's going to lose their jobs and it's going to be a shitty time. It's not the people who tell me, "Oh, I'm just going to wait for the crash and then I'll buy a home." It's like your job might not be around, and
Yeah,
then
and then
even
you won't
then,
have a
like
job, you won't have
yeah,
money.
and even if
Yeah.
you had money, even if you had your job that was like bulletproof, with that much economic uncertainty, like during COVID, looking back, like that was the perfect time to just YOLO and like borrow like $1 million from the bank and like put into like stocks or shit coins or real estate or anything, right? Like looking back, like if you just look at how the stock market crashed and just within a month or two just skyrocket and kept skyrocketing and it's going like the S&P is like over 500, which I thought, okay, after 500, I don't know, we're gonna have like a crash. Everyone kept talking about a crash this year, like this is the year where everything goes to shit and it's still going and maybe it is gonna crash, but I feel like I just missed out 6 months of like crazy gains on options if I just like invested. So thank God I didn't invest against the market because I would have lost my ass out. Like, yeah, I don't know. So it's really hard to time these things. And this sounds like another like I don't know show for like financial influencers talking about just investing in ETFs, but I think that is the way for the regular person to just at the very least, I don't know, break even maybe, park your money where it's somewhat safe, whether it's
Yeah.
just stocks and invest in the whole market versus like try to speculate. I mean, if you're good, you're always like reading up and like monitoring these things, these trends. Sure, you can make money on whatever. But yeah, the people who pray for a crash, I think they're just gonna end up waiting, and then they're gonna be bitter as hell years down the road with nothing to show for it. Because the
Yeah.
wheels keep turning, right? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Because remember the whole GameStop thing
Yeah,
where like everyone is going on about we need to look for like these meme stocks to invest in, and then like right after that, on the heels of that, then you get the whole crypto Dogecoin
right,
explosion. And
right.
then they put out a whole bunch of these tiny little shit coins that
Uh-huh.
people are investing in, and then they're getting rich. And then when that started to run out, then they start pushing those what were they called? Those
NFTs.
drawings, NFTs, yeah. And then
I feel
eventually that crashed too.
yeah, and it's just like a show. Like it's I don't know. I would have done it. I would invest in it if I honestly I had more money to burn. But yeah, like with anything, like I've always made it a point that like I think I put in like $200 right before like the week before AMC and GameStop pumped, and that was when the week of when GameStop was about to pop off. I realized I had to sign up for options on Robinhood, and it took a week for them to clear. Like I guess it's called like level two trading, which unlocks options. So I missed the pump. So I put like
Yeah.
maybe $200. It was like the last of my COVID check, the 2 grand I got. And that shit turned into like 8 grand in AMC. And I just took it and I realized, you know what? Like if the money comes fast, like I'm just gonna pretend like it's a fluke, which it is, because people always look back retrospectively and said, "Oh, I wish I just invested in Nvidia." Like no one knew Nvidia was just gonna take over the whole market and pretty much the whole economy is going to run off like Fang, like all the tech stocks. because it's like 80% of the market share and everything else is like negligent,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in times of economic uncertainty, people begin to speculate and become more risky, which is fine because there's always those crazy degenerates on Wall Street bets who make like a crazy amount of money, which is cool for them. But I just think this is one thing I really want to talk about. Just really scale back your life and find out what you really need in life to survive. And I think that is a first world problem where yes, like there's a lot of things going against young people, but historically people have had it way worse up until I don't know, the 90s. I feel like the 90s was like peak. I don't know, it's because we grew up there, but looking back, I still think it's pretty peak in like the early 2000s before the internet got really regulated. Like I remember Flash games, all the fucking viruses that you get from like random troll sites that your friends will send you, just
Oh yeah.
downloading music and getting, I don't know, porn viruses just because I
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
listen to Linkin Park. What was the wrong Linkin Park? Ended up being a porno or something.
Yeah,
Like,
speaking of malware, I think something that people don't talk about enough in finance, especially since so much of finance is done online these days,
yeah,
is if you're up, if you're making lots of gains, you need to have an exit strategy. You need to know when to cash out and how much to cash out. At the very
yeah,
least, you want to be able to cash out your initial investment because like
yeah,
there's lots of malware and people are constantly looking for ways to hack into like your information and take
oh
money
yeah,
from you. But
dude, it happened to,
you'll lose all of your investments in the blink of an
yeah,
eye.
yeah, it's so crazy because a bunch of top, I'm not gonna name their names, but like top freight companies, like one of them I'm applying for. I'm still applying for. See if they reply. But dude, they got hit with like ransomware and like some guys in Russia like took over, shut down everything on the digital side. So payroll wasn't processed. Phones weren't working. No internet access. It was some crazy shit. It happened like literally down the street from my job. And they wanted like I don't know, like 10 million or something. Honestly, it's a drop in the bucket, but it's cool that that company didn't negotiate with terrorists. But yeah, like like the dispatchers had to text their drivers like, "Hey, these are the routes you're gonna go deliver today," and that's crazy. Yeah, like you said, like there's so many scams where people invest in these crypto funds or whatever, and then there's a really big one. It's not FTX, but literally people just I think when people logged into the site after a bunch of money was dumped in, they just shut it down saying we took your money, haha, and you're pretty much never gonna get it back. It was like in the tens of millions or whatever.
Yeah, that's why it's
Yeah,
like that's why you need to have an exit strategy.
yeah,
Because then like
like
the longer you leave it in there, the more likely someone's gonna find a way to take it.
yeah,
And it's hard to get the money back because traditionally it's like if you get robbed of your money at a bank, like a bank robber robs the bank, it's like
mhm.
the government will eventually pay you
Yeah, you're
back somehow.
FDIC insured for
Yeah.
250K at least. And it's like, yeah, like you're playing with house money. You just gotta think about everything is a risk, everything is a casino in the sense that like with the GameStop thing where a lot of people felt a certain way about the stock market and how it's manipulated or whatever, you always have to assume that everything's a risk. Cause like it's like one of my friends has got an investment property. He just got it, brand new, brand new build, and he rented to a good friend. And this guy was like, I guess he was like hooked on drugs, like just didn't really talk about it. And before he got evicted, because he wasn't paying rent, he poured cement down the drains and it fucked up everything. And like the dude is just starting out. So he's not some fucking like dude with like a huge rental portfolio. He's like barely making enough to pay rent to cover his mortgage. And this asshole just like destroys it in his investment. It's just people don't talk about that side of investing. It's whether it's stocks or real estate, like there's always a risk, and you have to, as an investor or a rent or landlord, you gotta factor that in. You always have to be prepared for that. You can do your due diligence, but then again, nothing's certain. Um, rental property and all that. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think it's gonna go down with like immigration and a demand for living, you know. It's just
yeah,
people will need certain necessities. Like you can't, I don't know, I always hear about people saying, "Oh, like on this date, let's just boycott the gas stations and not pay gas." I'm like, "Motherfucker, I got rent and stuff. Like this is ridiculous. Like I'm gonna buy gas because I need it to like move around. People are not gonna not get these necessities, you know." And it's just like
yeah,
people saying, "Oh, like let's just pick a day and then withdraw all our money and do a bank run." Like, okay, dude. Like maybe if shit hits the fan, but that's not gonna. I don't know. Collectively doing something. We're so divided, especially in America, that like that's in a way it's good in the sense that like I feel like radicalism is kind of curbed in the sense that like you need overwhelming support from the masses to get any huge movement to take place. Because we're so culturally and racially diverse, that's never going to happen. At the same time, I feel like it's easy to be divided since we're all hung up on these really smaller issues instead of, you know, addressing cost of living and the devaluation of our currency and how everything's going to shit, you know.
yeah.
But
That's the thing. It's like you also have to take into account normies who don't follow these things, and so they have no idea what's going on most
yeah,
of the time. And so like if you want those kinds of like mass bank runs to work, you need everyone to be on board. But how are
yeah,
you going to get everyone to be on board when like the normie is too busy watching Game of Thrones? They're not paying attention. Most people
yeah,
aren't paying attention. And
and
so like
it's
you need
yeah,
enough people to join the movement, but not enough will.
yeah, and that's an art. That's why like there will always be people. That's why we look for like a strong man or whatever. I feel like again, like going back to Trump, he's just a symptom of like people being so sick of the system in general. But
Yeah.
it's one thing to be somewhat aware. Like I feel like there's layer tiers of normies where people at the fucking very bottom are just consumers and just like plugged in because like sometimes for good reason, like just like the future looks bleak and they're just it's way easier to just like I'm just gonna be a soy consumer like fucking gooner who just plays video games and like becomes a need. Which I think like you can at least be self-sufficient and your life will be way better if you choose to just be a hermit, in my opinion, at least. Like you could improve your life so much just doing the basics, but that's another conversation. And then there's people who are somewhat aware of what's going around, but they still play like into the system. Like I don't know, like a lot of friends I talk to and dance where they're just talking about like, yeah, like Biden's kind of fucked or whatever, but we gotta vote Democrat at the end of the year because like we can't have Trump in. I'm just like, okay, like it's okay to have conservative or more liberal views, but like at this point, if you can't see that like the system's just broken,
Yeah.
that I don't know what else to say because like I've been a lifelong Democrat. I remember in kindergarten, we did like a mock election in school. I think it was either Gore or Bush. And I remember when Bush won, like my mom was talking about how like the election was a scam, it was like corrupt. And like I've heard Democrats saying that throughout like the years about elections not being like, I don't know, uh accurate or fair or just. And maybe, I don't know, like I can't tell and I'm not looking into it, but regardless, it's I've seen enough casually that like I can see how, you know, you give 4 years to one side and things don't pan out the way you expect. And a lot of people don't want to admit that like most people vote silently. The silent majority votes with their wallet book, you know. If the left kind of goes crazy, there's plenty of people on the left that'll secretly vote conservative just to change things up. Most people are more pragmatic than the loud minority that shouts their I don't know, their flag or their team. If that makes sense. Like most people will just go where it seems most logical. But at this point, I'm so over it that the fact that these are candidates, it just shows me that like, okay, like maybe they're just figureheads. Like maybe they don't really do anything.
Yeah,
Maybe all the secret billionaire, trillionaire influence happens behind the scenes where no one ever sees, you know? There's so much money in lobbying that like no one ever knows about this unless you're some kind of investigative journalist.
yeah.
Like the
That's why
public
like
doesn't really know.
I don't think there's like an Illuminati, like a centralized group that's actively like destroying and ruining things. I think people are just taking advantage where they see it. Basically, it when people say deep state, usually it's some combination of the administrative bureaucracies who
Yeah,
are unelected and they're entrenched into the system, as well as special interest groups, which doesn't necessarily have to be like a big lobbyist group, like say the NRA. It could be
yeah,
something as simple as like a bunch of Karens in the neighborhood petitioning or telling their council members to like increase regulations on like building new properties in the neighborhood. It could be something as simple as that.
yeah,
Even the bureaucracies themselves, like the CIA, even they can be a special interest group because they have their own interests. They
yeah,
want their bureaucracy to expand. They don't want to lose funding for their agency.
yeah. And
So
there's so much of that. Like that's everywhere. Like,
yeah, that's everywhere. That's a
yeah,
problem. That reminds me of like this one line from the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson,
yeah,
where
that's
his
a good
I don't
movie.
remember the line exactly, but it was something along the lines of like you can either have you can either have one tyrant like 1,000 miles away, or you could have 1,000 tyrants 1 mile away. And that's what
Mm.
democracy basically is. It's 1,000 tyrants 1 mile away.
Yeah, I think I don't know, I joked about it, but I don't know, I don't really care. I think we need a dictator because I don't know, I think America's had a really, really good run up until now. It's astounding. Like this is not, I don't think this is a first world problem take. I just think we're reaching the limits of our republic. And like we're at risk of like repeating history, I think like, there's a certain limit where extravagance and decadence turns into degeneracy and apathy and the slow social and economic decay of our nation that people subconsciously or like consciously like want either things to just accelerate and go to shit or some leader that just comes in and just says fuck it, I'm just gonna like strongman and like fix
Yeah.
shit like regardless of what the status quo is.
Yeah, because
That's
I
why
think
people wanted of Trump and like he didn't do that and it's
oh
just
yeah.
like I don't know, like on the 4chan side, it was funny seeing him get elected because my ex at the time we were having pizza and I followed. That was the first time I followed the RNC debates because it was like WWE because Trump used to be on the WWE for a while, like actually as like a character or whatever. And the shit he was saying was like so outlandish that was like hilarious but kind of scary at the same time. But it was just hyperbolic as fuck, and he made it entertaining because I'm like, this guy's fucking crazy. Like, there's no way like, even though I hate Hillary, there's no way he could win. And when he won, I'm like, holy fuck, like, this is,
The meme magic is real.
yeah, the meme thing from like 4chan, I'm like, holy shit, dude, he actually fucking made it. Like, that's crazy. And then he turned out to just, like, I don't know, like, he was a lifelong Democrat. People didn't realize that. Like, he was beloved before he decided, like the moment he was like running under the MAGA thing, or even before, I don't know if it was before that, but he decided to run as a RNC candidate. Like that, like he was beloved by pop culture and people around him, by celebrities, by rappers, by everyone, because he was the poster boy of like I don't know, like a poor person becoming rich, you know, just super extravagant, bunch of hot women around, just like living life
Yeah,
to the
that's why he was so
fullest.
popular with rappers back then.
Yeah, people didn't realize that. It was just until like he started running for president. Like I think naturally he's been in business long enough, and I know like he's done shady things, and I just feel like when you get that high up, everyone like has some kind of dirt on them anyways. So I don't know why they're singling him out. I think it's just because he's loud as fuck and inflammatory.
Yeah,
Um,
he says the quiet part out loud.
yeah, and yeah, he quite says the quiet part out loud. And it's just like, dude, everybody's like this, and like at least, and like for him, he likes the attention anyway. So like, I think he feeds off it. So like, in
Yeah,
a way, I feel like the public, or at least the half of the country that hates him, is giving him what he wants anyways. Because all these people, like, I don't know, like, I just feel like politics, especially in America, there's definitely not like noble families, but our version of that is like political dynasties,
yeah,
with the Bushes or the Clintons. Like when you go into politics, like I see that most of these people are really fucking smart, no matter like where they come from. Either they're really smart or they're really well connected, and they come from well off families. And there's think of like all the backdoor deals that they're doing while they're in office, or at least somewhat in politics. That's the only reason why you even expose yourself, because your life becomes public at that point. And it's
yeah,
just otherwise you just stay in your industry or whatever and just make your money and retire. But no, it's just to consolidate power. And I
yeah,
don't know. I think money and power runs America. Like we don't have nobility, so people can't blame a king or the aristocracy for the way things are run.
yeah. I
And
think part of the reason why like the system is so hard to fix is because it's not completely broken, it's only selectively broken. Because like
mhm,
if you're in the position of power and you want to milk a system to your benefit, you
you
don't want
can,
a system that works perfectly. Because if it works perfectly, you'll get caught doing it and you'll get
yeah,
arrested. So you
yeah,
want a system that's just partially broken. Broken enough to allow you to exploit it, but not broken enough for people to actually riot in the streets and decapitate you.
right. So people talking about like the last time we've reached this Gini coefficient of like political and economic unrest, like we had the French Revolution. It's like I think, like you said, like there's 1,000 tyrants, and historically, I think you sent me like a screenshot off like I don't what what do they even consider that? It's like on YouTube, they have those posts through your feed from like certain channels, and it's not even channels that you follow, but they're like memes. And you sent
Yeah,
me one where it's
community posts.
yeah, community posts. And those
Yeah,
are really good. Like I just wish they
yeah.
were more organized, but like every so often they pop up and like it's some like
Those are the
half shit
funniest
posts.
memes.
Yeah, they're funny as fuck, but they're base as fuck too. It's like so fucking true. Like a lot of them, what they say, and one of them, I think it was like historically we had like a king and the aristocracy, a ruling class where you know exactly who caused all this shit. But now you really don't know who is really running this country. It's a bunch of people that you can't just single out anyone. It's hard to direct your anger and frustration if you don't even know who to pretty much place the blame at.
Yeah,
And it's just so and it works. Like you said, it's selectively broken because um Scott Galloway, who's been making the rounds on all these podcasts, and like he gives really good advice on for young men and all that, but he admits it himself, like, dude, if you're in the 1%, life in America, it like spending your millions in America is like the best shit ever. Like you go to Disneyland, like maybe like I don't even know what the tickets cost nowadays, like close to 300 maybe. I don't know. It has to be up there. But like if you pay for like the whole Disney experience, which is like 7 grand for each person, you're getting front of the line passes to all the rides. And if you've been to Disneyland, it's fucking 2 or 3 hours just to wait in line.
yeah,
Remember we went to like Knott's Berry Farm and how fucking long we waited for that one ride? I was like
yeah,
so like that was some peasant shit. Which is cool. Like it was cool being with friends, but like damn, like it'd be cool to be really rich and just like if money wasn't an object, life would be completely different. It's just night and day. And I look at since I like game a lot, like I guess I'll bring it up. Like I was playing this cat idle cooking game on my iPhone. And I'm not gonna lie, I paid $20 to like remove ads. Because if you remove ads, like you know how a lot of mobile games you'll watch an ad and it'll give you like an obscene amount of rewards. for watching these ads. It incentivizes you to pretty much watch ads. If you pay $20 every time these video pop-ups would pop up and you click on it, you just get the rewards without watching the video. And I succumbed to it because I play it so damn much that I figured, fuck it, like that's like I spent so much money on energy drinks. I'll just stop 4 days out of the week and buy the stupid game. And I did, and it was a completely different game. And I know it's a video game, but extrapolating it to real life, like imagine you could just pay your way throughout everything in life. It's just completely different. So like the people at the 1%, like they want the system to run exactly the way it is. Like I just
Yeah.
envision like if I was rich right now, if I had millions, like I wouldn't change a damn thing about the way the country's run. And it's kind of fucked up to say, but like it goes to your point, like you want it selectively broken. Like in Arizona, maybe 2 years ago, this dude, it was kind of badass because the senator, or he had like a 1999 LS 400, like the Lexus sedans, like their first Lexus vehicle ever, and he was doing like close to 180 or something, which is kind of impressive in a four-speed automatic. I was just impressed by the speed, but he got pulled over by the cop. And he's like, dude, this thing goes like 180. He's like, yeah, you broke the law. He's like, and he's just talking about like, yeah, I had places to go. And people are like so outraged, but the fact that he is so like happy, or he didn't even care that he was speeding, shows that um I don't know, for better or for worse, there is privilege in this world. And it sucks that you're not a politician or you're rich as fuck, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like I think there was a New York mayor or whatever. Like I think Avan Preach made a video on her where she was talking about like she was speeding and the cops followed her home. She's like, "Yeah, go ahead and process me. Like I'm gonna process the ticket myself anyways."
I think
Pretty much
yeah, I think
saying
she's like
that,
I think she's like a DA or like
or
some high ranking
DA.
prosecutor or judge even or something.
Yeah, so she's like pretty much saying like, "Go process me. I'm gonna tear up that shit once I get to work anyways." And low key, dude, I was like, "That's a flex, dude." She just put those fucking cops in their place, and it's fucked up. But it's like there's levels to this, Like there's corruption everywhere, there's injustice everywhere. But I just like going back to I think the quote. I'm jumping all over the place, but I remember you saying something like capitalists don't really want capitalism, you just want like the benefits or something. It's the same thing. I don't fault anyone for getting to that level and like not taking advantage of that because most people think they're really moral, and Jordan Peterson says that. Like you might just end up abusing your power too, like once you get there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of like that joke from Dave Chappelle when he was talking about why Trump was so popular.
Hmm.
And like he said like he saw Trump go on stage and say that the system was broken and I know the system is broken. And then like Hillary asked him, was like, well, how do you know the system was broken if you're able to run for election? And it's like, because I use the system.
Yeah, because I'm here pretty much. He should have said that. That would have been. And it's funny because like, dude, Hillary and like fucking Trump, they probably like go golfing together. This is the thing that like pisses me off. Like
Yeah,
these
like
people are all connected. Like this is just like a.
they used to be connected to each other before the election.
I think they still do after because I feel like this is a sick joke where they're just like, hey, look at these dumbasses like following the election. Like we're just gonna go like to our country club after where all the elites like see each other. Like I feel like this is just like a game to like troll like the masses. Like, hey, look at them infight. Like it's like we're fighting over crumbs, and like the 1% is just overlooking us in their ivory tower. Like it's fucking ridiculous. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, if
Yeah.
you really want to make change, like I don't know how political change actually happens. Like I don't know unless like you create some kind of fringe movement, but at least in your immediate life, dude, it's at a certain point everything gets tied to your income. Like the more you make, the different like I don't know, certain thresholds, you just get afforded a different life. Like if you make six figures a year, yes, which people say, oh, like, it can't afford you much, but it can at least afford you some investments and like do a couple of decades of like just conservative investing. You'll move up tax brackets and then you'll start playing a different game.
Yeah.
Like for like a life of a millionaire versus a billionaire is like 1,000 millionaires. It's not just like the number numerically like 1,000 times, it's like you live a little like it's night and day difference what a billionaire can afford versus like a billionaire, you know? Like a millionaire, people think being a millionaire is, driving Lambos and just like doing coke off of
That's like the 50s
strippers.
or
That's
something.
yeah, maybe back then when like for inflation, like that's what the term millionaire was like for. It was way back in the day, like if you're back in like John D. Rockefeller's age, if you're a millionaire, you're fucking set. Like that's
Yeah.
obscene amount of money. Just 1 million, you're good. Your lineage for the next couple generations are good. But millionaire now, millionaire now is not what it is. And it's pretty much you can retire, but you're pretty much driving like 10-year-old Toyota Camry, maybe like an F-150 or something.
Yeah.
And
A
then you have a paid off
millionaire.
house. Yeah.
A
And then you have
millionaire
like
is just like
maybe,
a boomer.
yeah, you're just a boomer, a entry level boomer, dude. And then like after 10 mil, I've been told that like just putting your money in the markets is at like astronomical, the returns. Like a 7% interest rate on again 10 mil is ridiculous for net worth. And just the numbers, like the calculator, if you go on a calculator and type in like a billionaire and just look at or a billion and then try to like get a 7 or 5% return even on the market, that number is stupid. Like I don't know if I could pull it up, but
It looks broken.
yeah, it's literally
It looks like
broken.
a typo.
Yeah, because you can't even like at some point 5% of a billion is that's 50 million a year in interest. Like that's
How many people can you feed with that?
no, fuck them. Like you just become a ruler. You start like saving up to buy countries. Like, come on, man. Like
That's the
this
thing,
is
is
the
like
yeah,
I think the reason why it's like it's so corrupt is because people go into DC, they go in there really idealistic, they graduate at the top of their class, they were
yeah,
in a million different internships, they have
yeah,
shadowed a bunch of professionals, they're
yeah,
perfect for DC politics. But
yeah,
once they actually get in there, they realize the system can't be fixed. And they can either
yeah,
become cynical and drop out, or they become
yeah,
cynical and exploit the system. Exploit
yeah,
the part that's broken, selectively
yeah.
broken.
I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, especially as a first gen immigrant, man. Like, I get it. Like, there's tribalism, and it's like with anything, dude. Like, once you get past the like whatever it is, like if you're trying to break into the middle class, once you get there, you realize, okay, it's not all that. I'm just still a wage slave. But each time you go out, especially if you're, I feel like most people are empathetic and like altruistic to a certain point. You got to get yours first, right? You got to be secure in yourself first. Like people are gonna when people gain power and wealth, if they're chasing that, like they're gonna bring their boys with them. They bring their family members. Like that's how shit works. Like especially
Yeah,
in immigrant culture in America, like you're taking care of your own people first. Like
yeah,
and so that's why when there's nepotism or like corruption, it's just like the fuck do you expect? Like
yeah,
if most people don't like they would kill to have the opportunity, and it like that's kind of jaded. I just think people and maybe there are people who are selfless, but I feel like the people who actually want change, and I guess this one thing I can advocate for like quote unquote woke people, the people who are actually wanting change and like trying to push for at least equal opportunity, they're making changes on their own. They're not virtue signaling. They're actually maybe they give up their position to someone less fortunate or someone of color. Like I know there's people who do that, but I just feel like the people who have to announce it, they're just looking for God, there's that term. Like what is that term when they're just doing it for appearances?
virtue signal.
Oh, is that what virtue signaling is? Shit, I don't
Yeah,
even know what I'm saying. But yeah, like I think in this day and age, because people's attention span is so short that it's suffice enough to just pretend like you're fighting for the right cause than actually sticking your neck out there and risking like I don't know bottlenecking your own success to give up your spot for someone else. And then there's the
yeah,
rest of us who are just trying to claw their way up. I just feel like most people are just trying to make it up the ladder. And I think the world is way more selfish and way more depraved than people like to realize.
Yeah, I
It,
mean that's
it's
how it's like when you're applying for a job too.
yeah, you're competing, right?
Yeah,
You're
and
like once you
you're
get the yeah,
yeah, because
uh,
if you're a new graduate, you're competing not just against like other graduates who are really highly qualified. You're also competing against like some Gen Xer who's tired of his job in the agency and he wants to switch to another department in the same company.
yeah, and he's just bored as fuck. He knows everything. He knows everyone, and he's just doing it for shits and giggles. And you're competing against that guy, you
Yeah, you don't
know?
stand a
So
chance.
yeah, you stand a chance, dude. He has like 50 years, like 30 years of experience. Like he knows everyone, and he's cool with everyone. He knows how everything works. Like how are you gonna compete with that guy? You know? So I don't know.
Yeah. The
Like
most you
once
can
you
hope for is to become that guy once you're in.
right. So it's like at that point, it's like with anything, whether it's academia or politics or your job sector, at that point you're pretty much baked into the system, whatever system it is, right? Like at that point that young person who wants like radical change, like no, like you become like the boomer like establishment person that you fought so hard to not become, you know?
Yeah. Either die a hero or live long enough to see
Yeah.
yourself become the villain.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
That's,
dude. It's just that's why it's just like I mean, there are people who live that fight, and the numbers show that they end up being some crazy old person. At some point, I remember complaining. I can't try to take my food. I remember complaining at Amazon talking about how like once I got my first paycheck, I was like, that was the most conservative I've ever been because I was such a goddamn ideal like armchair socialist growing up. I was so left leaning, and I realized once I got my first paycheck, I made like close to 700, which is good, you know, for a first job. Then I realized I end up being like 350 after taxes for all these things that I didn't know what I was paying for. Like, I guess like it was Medicare, Social Security, but it's like that's my money. Like, I thought it was just X amount of hours versus your wages. I didn't realize, oh,
yeah.
I got to pay tax and everything. And then like looking back now, like, dude, we went to war like as Americans over like what a 1% tax on tea or whatever. Like the yes, we have a what do they call it? Progressive tax system, but like at the upper rungs, you're paying 40 something percent, almost 50%, or maybe it's like 37, whatever it is. Like it's too fucking much. Like you
Yeah.
know,
Even if it's a small percentage, at some point you look at the price tag and it's like, really? I'm losing that much opportunity.
yeah, you could like, and people say like, oh, what about social service? I'm like respectfully, fuck that shit. Like you make that money, you spend it whatever the hell you want. Because just like how like an employer can't force you to work, they shouldn't force you to pay tax. Like the system shouldn't force you to pay taxes. And I get it. Like in the bigger scheme of things, like America, it's just like I don't know. It's just one giant, you know, organized crime syndicate. You know, like
Yeah.
yeah, like if you don't pay then they break your kneecaps, but like in the form of like it's economic warfare where they just tax you. And like
Yeah.
inflation is just a hitting in tax too. It's just I get it. Like it's a game. That's why like at some point, if you make enough money, you will become like black pilled on how money and how the world works. And I just feel like a lot of students I see, that I run into, they have this idealistic idea of like what society should be like until they get their first paycheck and they realize, okay, like this is kind of fucked. Like they might still be left leaning, but I just feel like they're not deep into work culture enough to realize
They're
I
left
just
leaning like Hillary Clinton
yeah.
or Joe Biden.
Yeah, and that's like I don't even know what you would call those. Would they just be establishment Democrats? Because people don't realize those people are pretty conservative
Personally,
overall.
I don't view any of that stuff as left wing or right wing. I think it's just materialism. Because then it's
Yeah,
like, because then like by the end of the day, it's like I always hear right wingers, capitalists make fun of socialism for saying that's not real socialism. But then like I've also heard socialists say, well, capitalists are always saying that's not real capitalism. Truth of the matter
That's
is,
true.
truth of the matter is, no one wants real socialism or real capitalism. They want socialism and capitalism to the degree that it benefits them, but not to the degree that it hurts them.
Yeah,
And
that's what I'm
people want
saying.
to, yeah, that's why I call all of this materialism. People want
Yeah.
maximum pleasure and minimum pain. That's all it is. We're no better than a grizzly bear that wants food but doesn't want to go hunting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like now that you've expanded on that, like you said that a couple times and I understood it, but I could only, especially through text, I could only um understand it literally. But now that you've explained it with those points, it makes complete sense. Because honestly, I remember going to business school with this Marine guy. He's a vet, but he's always worked multiple side hustles before this was a thing, and he had a paid off house. And at my age, he had a paid off house, and just this guy was like a super conservative, God fearing man. But he talked about how we'd always talk after class. He talked about how there's no accountability in modern society anymore. And it's true. And he talked about how we're so far gone, and we're all guilty of it. I get it. Um, we're so far gone in terms of knowing what really matters in life. Because he talks about how even if you're homeless, even if you're strung out on drugs, even if you're just fucking living in the depths of despair, especially in America, like all you need really is some form of shelter. No, but first thing you need is like air in your lungs. 'Cause you can't live with that shit. You need water, and you'll live on those two for a really long time, and then some amount of food, and then shelter. Those are the four things you need in life, and then blood pumping through your veins. And that's pretty much all you need to exist. Like, it's not a great life, but that's literally the essentials. And everything else is pretty much, in his eyes, he's a very extreme guy. That's pretty much everything else is fluff. And um, yeah, he's super frugal, but he kind of talked about what you talked about, where how most people just optimize for pleasure. It's just we're so decadent in the sense that like the problems I feel like the problems we have now aren't really problems. But if we had to downgrade, people would lose their shit though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and going back to like the narrative of the American dream, I think we've been holding on to that dream for so long, and it's just a narrative. Like with anything, there's propaganda and narratives everywhere. But for that one, I think Americans have been sold on that for so long because even Gen Xers, and a lot of poor boomers. The problem with like attacking boomers is the poor boomers probably died off because like there were poor boomers.
They died from AIDS.
Yeah, you saw the survivorship bias like of like a lot like a reliable car or whatever. It's like you didn't see all the shitty, poorly built Corollas. Like you saw the really good ones, and the really good ones were really good. Don't get me wrong, but it's survivorship bias, like and this story, we need to wake up from it. Like it sucks that dream has passed. Like it's still attainable if you're just fucking maximizing your income and like really living like a monk, you can make it happen. But most people will not subject themselves to that. They're way too undisciplined, they're way too distracted by the pleasures in life that most people won't do it. And like that's okay, like you can still live a good life in America, I think. You just won't own anything. And
Yeah.
people come like the boogeyman fucking you will own nothing and be happy. I'm like, I honestly think they would be happy because most of these people would just chronically live online and like don't work and just don't do anything. And I'm not placing the blame on them, but I don't know. Like Tim Dillon says, the apocalypse is coming, but at least we got a double cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The time is winding down.
Yeah. Oh shit. We actually ran a little bit over. You want to cut it now or
Yeah.
what do you think? I know I was like kind of rambling, but like, what do you think about the quality of life? And then I really want to touch on the point of like managing your expectations and
Yeah.
focusing on what really matters.
Yeah. The people on social media definitely need that managing expectation.
Yeah, I just think Yeah, like a lot of people are grifters, first of all, and they're probably broke. But even if they're rich, most people will never live that kind of life, you know? Like if you can just it sounds like I'm pegging everything, but if you have a place to live, you have family, and you have food to survive the next day, I think that's something to be grateful for,
Yeah,
I
the
think.
average 50s house was tiny,
Yeah,
but it was enough to raise a family of five.
yeah, yeah. And most people won't do it. I get it, like kids are expensive, but like if you downgraded your life, most people probably would have kids, but everyone wants to be, I don't know, a Lambo driving influencer, and that's never gonna
Yeah,
happen. You're never gonna have kids, so I don't know. I just think it's just gonna get worse for those people. And maybe next time we could talk about how like I'm starting to see a lot of Gen Z or maybe younger Gen Alpha kids be really conservative, and this less this I don't know, people not engaging in hookup culture as much and dating sites and dating apps. I think that's a real response to just being tired of the degeneracy. It's not really helping anyone.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right, man. Didn't mean to take up too much of your time, but have fun on your Saturday, whatever you're gonna do. But
Yeah,
thanks for staying a little bit longer.
yeah. See ya.
All right, see ya.